You can't avoid a union if the people want it.
Unions do some good things.
Yeah. I was a member of the union for a while.
So on that, you maybe disagree with Donald Trump.
Good, gentlemen. Yeah, possibly, yeah.
Several of the Trump supporters who attended the former president's rally in New Hampshire happen to be union supporters, which, to be quite frank with you all, did not surprise me. But how do they feel about the fact that their preferred candidate is actually an individual who is not supportive of unions, seems to despise unions? Well, let's take a look.
Unions, to support unions.
Yes.
Donald Trump does not support unions. Is that a problem?
I don't like everything about him, like I said. Like, when I vote, I like if I like more things about him, then I'll go with him. We don't agree on everything. This country needs to go back to this person supposed to be speaking for us, not speaking what you believe in. If the majority of Americans like unions, then he should be pushing for union.
Unions, do you support unions?
I do.
Because Donald Trump has not supported unions and has done some things to hurt unions. Is that a problem?
It needs to be negotiated.
All right, so you're more of a pragmatist. You don't agree with Donald Trump on everything, clearly.
No.
Unions, what do you think of unions?
I'm probably going to be a conflict of interest on that one.
Are you a union member?
No, I'm an accountant for a lot of unions.
Oh, great. I mean, so you support unions?
I do.
Donald Trump does not support unions.
Okay, I don't have to agree with everything a president has.
That's true.
Now, the last couple that you just heard from, you heard from the wife, who obviously is supportive of unions. You just heard her say it. Her husband is actually not supportive of unions. So that's an interesting relationship, to say the least. But I thought it was kind of interesting, Cenk, that they support unions. They know that Trump doesn't, but they're willing to, I guess, turn the other cheek and not ding him for that. Probably because they might look at the other side of the political spectrum and see other elements of the Democratic Party that they like less. So maybe that's where it comes from. But I'm curious what you think about it.
Yeah, so I watched a lot of those interviews that Schuster did for us at that Trump rally over the weekend. And you should too, by the way, youtube.com/theyoungturks. We're gonna put up a lot of those videos. They're always super interesting. And in this case, there were other guys he interviewed that said, no, I don't care. Whatever Trump says is like basically God's commandment. I don't disagree with anything Trump says, and so if he's against unions, then even if I like unions, screw unions. Okay, so my point in telling you that is not that all Trump fans are like that. You just saw a whole bunch that are not like that, right? They're a mixed lot. So yes, some of them are full MAGA cult, and they say, okay, my previous positions I'll throw into a dumpster and light it on fire if Trump's against it, right? But a whole bunch of them are saying, oh, okay, I disagree with him on that, but I agree with him on other things, and so I'm gonna overlook that. Which, by the way, we all do, right? There's things that I disagree with Bernie Sanders on, and I overlook it because he's much better than the alternative in the last 2 presidential races, right? So that's that. I get that. To me, what stood out in both groups is how well Donald Trump does marketing. Because so many of his almost none of his supporters know that he's against unions, which, by the way, also goes to how poorly the Democrats do marketing in politics.
That's true, but
right?
Also unions, not something that corporate media is really interested in covering.
That's another good point.
So they'll ding Donald Trump on culture war or identity issues, but they won't ding him on his lack of support for organized labor, because they also don't support organized labor. Go ahead.
Totally, but there's one other thing though. So many of his supporters talk about, no, he's for jobs. How do you know he's for jobs? Because he says it all the time. This is elementary politics. I don't think Donald Trump is very bright. If you watch the Young Turks, you've seen me say that 1,000 times, right? But he gets one thing right, marketing. And meanwhile, the Democrats are like, what is that? Are we supposed to speak? Yeah, you're supposed to speak. You're supposed to make your case. So people have at this point, like if you're knee deep or neck deep in politics, you know the Democratic Party historically has been for the average guy, has been for unions, has been for higher wages, etc. Historically. But if you're a normal average person in America today, You don't know that at all because the Democrats never talk about it, right?
In fact, you might think the opposite of the Democratic Party, as you're about to hear from this one final individual who we spoke to at this Trump rally. I think what he had to say here was enlightening. So let's take a look at what he has to say and I'll break it down further.
Listen, I've been working in the union since '88, okay? And when Trump came in, that's when you saw the transition. From 2015, by the end of his term in 2020, that's when you saw, I would say there was about 80% of the guys all Trump. And now, I swear to God, over 95%.
And so union guys support Donald Trump because what does Donald Trump do for unions?
He brings jobs to America, that's what he does.
So it matters more the job creation than whether he actually supports unions himself.
Pro-American policies. What comes around goes around, right?
Well, and a lot of Republicans are not in favor of unions, right? I mean, they want to crack down on unions and think that unions are bad for business.
Not true. Who destroyed more union jobs than when Clinton signed NAFTA, who was pushed by and co-sponsored by Joe Biden?
So he does make a pretty damning point about the Clinton administration and how NAFTA decimated union jobs in America. Now, of course, that legislation was overwhelmingly supported by Republican members of Congress. But you also have to understand that the parties have changed a lot, right? Now, the corporatists in the Republican Party still exists. We shouldn't erase that. That still is a big issue. However, when Trump comes in and presents himself as an economic populist who wants to bring manufacturing jobs back to the United States, that leads to a little bit of a, at least optically speaking, realignment for the Republican Party. At the same time, you have the Democratic Party that is taking bribes from corporations and increasingly carrying out the best interests of their corporate donors. They're moving further and further away from the FDR branding and feel of their party. And so this realignment, it's concerning because the Republican Party overall is not pro-labor. But when they look at Donald Trump, they see a pro-labor president because of the fact that he renegotiated NAFTA and because of the fact that he engages in great marketing that gives them honestly, the illusion that he is bringing jobs back to the United States, even though you look at the numbers and that's not really true.
Yeah, and all the Republicans were in favor of NAFTA, but people have forgotten because, as usual, the Democrats agreed with the Republicans,
right,
and then blew that advantage. So now NAFTA is intensely unpopular here in America, but nobody ever thinks, hey, all the Republicans voted for it. They think Bill Clinton, he was in charge. And they did the same thing with the Iraq war in a sense. George W. Bush was in favor, but now the Republicans have disowned Bush and Cheney, but people like Hillary Clinton and the others are still left holding the bag. They all voted for the Iraq war like idiots. And so now the country's beginning to think, I guess the Democrats are pro-war and pro-corporations and pro-lobbyists. Meanwhile, Trump's fighting for our jobs. Now again, it isn't true. It isn't true. But it matters what gets into people's heads. And the Democrats don't believe in making their own case. They just lay down every time and they think that's sophisticated and gentlemanly thing to do.
But Jake,
no, Trump is blaring from the rooftops, I'm for American workers, when he's the exact opposite. And nobody even bothers to prove him wrong.
Can I ask you something, Cenk? And this is maybe gonna set members of the audience off, might even set you off. But what case does the mainstream Democratic Party have to make when it comes to being in favor of labor? What case do they have to make? Right now, the current Democratic Party. Yeah. Look, yes, there's some progressive sprinkled in there. Some of them actually do care about labor. Some of them pay lip service to labor, but they never fight for labor.
Yeah, so look, there's basically one person in Washington that is clearly pro-labor, indisputably, and that's Bernie Sanders.
Yes.
Right, and he's a Democrat. Although, whenever presidential elections come around, the Democrats disown him and go, he's not really a Democrat. And what they mean by that is he's not a corporate stooge like the rest of us.
Right, he's an independent who caucuses with the Democratic Party.
Yeah, so now, but as you point out often on the show, Anna, Biden's National Labor Relations Board, infinitely better, right?
Okay, good point. Good point.
And he did actually, Biden did turn around and get days off for some of those rail workers. But on the other hand, Anna's not wrong that Obama, Clinton, Biden, in terms of policy, they always say that they're gonna pass the PRO Act, other pro-labor acts. That's the first thing I come in and tell you guys when a Democrat's elected. I say the pro-union stuff has a 0% chance of passing. So if you're hearing BS in the mainstream media about, oh, the Democrats are in favor of that. No, they're not. They take 10 times more money from corporations. They're never, ever going to pass those laws. So it's a mixed bag. The Republicans are always worse. In fact, as you're gonna see in a clip in a little bit, Trump brought in like the most corporate guy in the world to be the labor secretary, tried to crush all workers in America. Trump doesn't even believe in a minimum wage. He thinks that maybe it should be lower than $7.25. So the Republicans and Trump are the worst in policy. So yes, the Democrats these days are marginally better when they should be worlds better, like FDR and LBJ and JFK were.
And look, you don't have to take it from us when we say that Donald Trump is not supportive of labor. You can actually hear it from his own mouth, as you're about to in this next clip.
In a new USA Today expose that found hundreds of former employees and contractors have accused Donald Trump and his businesses of failing to pay them for their work.
In 2008, during the Great Recession, he blamed UAW members. He blamed our contracts for everything that was wrong with these companies. That's a complete lie. In 2015, when he was running for president, he talked about doing a rotation, taking all these good paying jobs in the Midwest and moving them somewhere in the South.
He appointed Eugene Scalia, one of the nation's top anti-union lawyers, to be his Secretary of Labor. Under Trump's administration, the National Labor Relations Board implemented sweeping new rules that made it harder for workers to form unions. Trump packed the courts with anti-labor judges, people like Thomas Farr. President Trump made it harder for workers to earn overtime, and he gutted the federal agency in charge of workplace safety.
So again, you don't have to take it from us. You can look at his policies and they're just demonstrably anti-labor, not pro-labor. Yeah. But his rhetoric appeals to people, and I understand why. If you came from a family that had generations working in manufacturing jobs, well-paying unionized manufacturing jobs, came with wonderful benefits, great retirement, and all of that was decimated as a result of NAFTA or some of the other policies that were implemented by the US government, simply hearing Trump cheerlead the United States, bringing manufacturing jobs back to the United States with like the vacuum left behind with the Democratic Party, I can totally understand where they're coming from. I don't blame them for feeling the way they do.
Yeah, so look, Trump's a gigantic liar. We just showed it to you, there's no question about it. But let's just, well, last thing is to talk about the Democratic strategy. So they have the PRO Act, it's a very pro-union act. They don't even propose it. Now, if you propose it and it goes up for a vote, what happens? Then all the Republicans lobby against it. And they say, oh, we're anti-union, screw the workers. No way we're gonna let you pass that union bill, okay? And then the country gets the message, oh, the Republican Party hates unions and they hate labor and they hate the average worker, right? And they work for their corporate donors. So why don't the Democrats bring it up for a vote?
Because they're corrupt.
Because they also are not in favor of labor and their corporate donors don't allow them to bring it up for a vote. And the Democrats go, yes, sir, we will go and pretend, we'll take all the union money too, by the way, and we'll pretend to be on the side of workers, and then we'll screw them over. We won't even propose it. We won't even propose it. That's when you know someone is lying, when they say that they're in favor of something and don't bother even trying. Okay, so that's the sorry state of the Democratic Party now, and why the Republicans are running circles around them when they're actually much worse.